Hello everyone, my name is Nisha McCallum. I am a dementia care coach at the Dementia Society. So a few things before we get started. One is if you would like to ask any questions or make any comments as we go through the presentation, the more that happens, the easier it is on me, because then I can make sure that I'm meeting all of the needs that you have, and any questions that you have do get answered. So a little bit of the presentation is a little bit more theory, just giving you an idea of what a meaningful activity means, but then also some more practical tips and definitely things that you can do while you're stuck at home inside the same walls during the isolation period that we're under right now. So we're going to be recording this webinar, and so people can enjoy this afterwards too if they weren't able to make the live version. But certainly also remember that we as dementia care coaches are here to answer any of these questions at any point. Meaningful activities, because the meaning is a personal thing. When we're talking to you on the phone, we can be the ones to figure out what that looks like for your individual situation. So don't be shy. Give us a call here at the Dementia Society. If you don't know who your dementia care coach is, just call in and press the support button, and you'll be transferred to whoever is on call that day. And of course, you can also email in if you'd rather begin that way. So it's info@dsorc.org. So just be aware there's a chat function, and you can wave. There's different ways to connect with my colleague Herman, who will make sure that I'm aware of your questions as we go through. So here we go. So meaningful activities. What is a meaningful activity? So basically, a meaningful activity is something that connects with the person that is going to be the one you're tailoring this for. So what's meaningful to you is certainly different than what's meaningful to. So you're going to make sure that the person feels good about it, and definitely if you feel that the person's interests have changed, then you want to be doing what is here and now, what is in the moment, and what's successful for the person's cognition and interests at this moment. So why? Of course, meaningful activities can do a whole lot of different things. Improve sleep habits. So when someone is stimulated and they feel good throughout their day, they're going to be having hopefully a more restful sleep, and they're going to feel happier, hopefully less agitation throughout the day. And just like you and I, someone living with dementia can feel boredom, even if they don't remember what they've done 10 minutes ago, half an hour ago. That feeling stays with you, and so you want to have a good feeling connected to whatever it is that you're doing. So there are some things that we want to consider when we're planning a meaningful activity. So what is the person's background? Do they speak a different language? Is that what they're going back to at this point? Is there something from their work history that you can bring into this meaningful activity? Is there something that they previously enjoyed doing and you're not really sure? Is it something they're interested in now? Well, a lot of this is trial and error. Give it a try and see what works. Whether or not they like to do things in a group, of course, right now that's not quite possible. But when we are able to leave our house, do they thrive more when they're around a few other people, or around they have a child in their presence? Personal care habits. So is someone able to participate in this? Because certainly we'll get into that a little bit more. That is a meaningful activity, whether or not you can complete things for yourself. So as much as the person can do for themselves without getting frustrated, agitated is really the word I like to use, because there's a certain amount of frustration you can feel without it being a complete failure. And so you want to make sure that you're giving that encouragement, and you're trying to get someone to move beyond that frustration. But when you see and you get that intuition that it's just too much, then move along at that point. And then routines. What does the person's routine look like? So you want to consider what time of day and whether or not they have a certain amount of energy at that time of day to include this activity. So for someone's skills and abilities, you want to make sure that you're looking at the stage of dementia, their daily cognition, because of course that can change day to day. And you're taking an activity that they've always enjoyed, or that you know that they're going to enjoy, and you're modifying it depending on what their skill level is. So you'll see in the pictures here, there are various levels of 2 different activities. So of course, if someone can walk, even if they're using a mobility aid, it's the fresh air, it's the movement, it's getting around, that is the purpose, and maybe the conversation that's happening at the same time. So whether or not they can physically walk is not the main focus. It's the fact that you've engaged in something and that you've enjoyed your surroundings. Same thing with gardening. So you can modify that if someone is able to actually guide the activity. So if someone is still quite capable and skilled in something, let's say they had a really green thumb their entire lives, and they can actually show you how to do it. Part of that meaningfulness will be realizing that they've been able to help you and you've learned throughout the activity. But that's if they do to do bottom. You can see there's an older woman, and she's with maybe her granddaughter. She's reading to her, and so it's a book about gardening. And there's also the flowers there, so she can enjoy the aroma of the flowers at the same time. The girl can guide her to touch the flowers and feel that touch. So you also want to be focusing on the senses, which I'll talk a little bit more about as we go through. So one thing you have to really focus on when you're trying to make an activity successful for the person living with dementia is enjoying it rather than winning a game or something turning out the way that you had hoped. So let's say we'll use the pictures as a guide. It's baking that you want to try with the person. Maybe they're only doing a small part of it. So you're getting them to actually put the cookies that have already been mixed by you, them sitting there and watching you do it, putting on some music in the background for some nice background music. But then they're the ones that are scooping the mix onto the tray if you're worried that it's going to be really hard to guide them with measuring properly. But maybe that is the task that they're going to be involved in too. So it's about taking an activity, breaking it down beforehand and figuring out what parts of this do you think they're going to enjoy the most or not feel frustrated about. So let's say the cookies turned out horrible and they're really not tasty. Well, did they have fun doing it? Maybe there's something else that you can snack on afterwards. Maybe you can laugh at it and enjoy some humor together. Not necessarily point out why it wasn't successful, but you're just looking at less about the end result and more about the process that you're going through. Same game of chess or any other game. You want to make sure that they're having fun and they're feeling good about it. So when I talk more about some actual tips on what things to do while you're at home, start to write down your own ideas of things that you think they might enjoy, or basically creating a list of hobbies that they've always had, and we can talk about it here. You can call your dementia care coach and we can figure out what that might look like. So you want to look at not only things that are fun, you want to be looking at things that can make the person feel that they've contributed to something, that they have value. So household chores can be something that you can look at, especially right now. So dusting is a good one, and it might seem strange to do this. I was speaking to one of my clients not too long ago, and she said that the house has actually never been cleaner because she and her husband have all this time to do it. And he's actually way more involved in that than he used to be. He, of course, is the person living with dementia. And I said, well, I know it might seem strange, but would you feel comfortable maybe sprinkling some flour along your mantle or along the windowsill, or accidentally spilling a plant that has to be cleaned up, because it gives the person that feeling of accomplishment. So it does seem strange to dirty your house to clean it, but if it's contained and it's not going to ruin anything in your house, well, then it's actually creating an activity that may not have been there. Of course, shopping and errands, we're not even going to talk about that right now because that's not our normal that we're living in at the moment. But if you have something in your backyard that needs to be done, or let's say you can bring in some seeds from your garage, or that's been in storage, you can start those inside right now by a window. And then another daily life activity, of course, is personal care. So having someone help pick out their outfit, or even holding one outfit and another one up and saying, which one would you like to wear today? Or saying, what color do you like? Purple. Okay, great. Let's go look for a purple outfit. So it gives the person that involvement in their day-to-day support. So like I mentioned earlier, things to consider. You want to make sure that the energy level of the person is high if the activity that you're doing has a lot of energy required. So let's say you're doing something physical. You want to make sure that it's maybe earlier on in the day when someone has just had a wake up or their morning coffee, or they've just woken up from a rest. And so that's when you probably want to do more physical activities, or activities that have to do with more concentration. And then you also want to make sure that is meaningful for the person. And in the evenings, you want to be doing activities that are more calming, so that can guide them into the rest period. So that's when you want to do a lot of more sense activities, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So if the person does experience sundowning, you want to really pay attention to the agitation level, and before it gets dark, and you want to go to the windows and you want to start shutting the blinds and turning the lights on. So you're actually extending the light period in your homes. You're actually giving the person more opportunity to stay in potentially a better mood if they are experiencing sundowning. It doesn't work for everybody, but that could be one tip that works for you. You can also order sunlight light bulbs for your house that you can put in various places. They're not the cheapest things, so maybe you want to just focus on one room that you're going to be spending a lot of time in, like your living room, and use that, because that can also help with sound deadening as well. So here's the practical piece of the presentation. So we're going to be talking about some ideas that you can do at home right now. So one could be playing some board games. And basically start with one game. So this is called Bananagrams. And for anyone who has never seen it before, it comes in this little yellow banana case. And inside, because it's very lovely and portable, so when we can travel again, you can take it with you in your suitcase. But they've got these little tiny tiles in them. So they look just like Scrabble tiles, but they don't have any numbers on them for counting. And the way you play the Bananagrams game is actually simultaneously with the other person, or you can play as a team. You can actually modify it so much that I played this quite often when I worked in recreation. For about 10 years previous to working at the Dementia Society, I worked in retirement homes and long-term care facilities, as well as day programs. And so I experienced communicating and learning from people living with various levels of dementia. So if the person is in the very early stages, of course you can play this game and have it be a competition, or you can just kind of make the rules up as you go, and maybe you're just putting the tiles across the table and you're trying to make words together and seeing how many you can come up with. So you're competing against yourself from the previous time. And if you, so I want to encourage, if people are going and doing shopping for you, or let's say you're avoiding going out to the stores altogether, you can order this off of Amazon. I checked today, it was $20 on Amazon, so it can be delivered right to your door. Of course, you can get it at Walmart or any game store if someone's going to pick it up for you, or you can make it yourself. So a lot of these activities I'm going to talk about, there's different ways to make it at home. So because really all you're playing with is tiles, you can take a piece of paper and you can cut it up into different squares, so all the same size, and you can look at a guide online. If you just Google DIY, do it yourself, Bananagrams, it can tell you how many of each letter to write on these squares. So that's a way to do it as well. So it doesn't actually cost any money if you have a pen and you have paper at home. Another idea is 5-card bingo. So I think it's good level of cognition. So the more the person can understand complex games, you can actually make it a 10-card bingo, or let's say a 20-card bingo. So all you need is 2 sets of cards. And so one set, you're going to be dealing out the amount of cards for each person playing. So let's say it's you and the other person. So each person gets 5 cards in front of them, face up. And then you start turning over cards from the other deck. So let's say the 2 of hearts comes up. You look at yours and your partner's cards. If they have the 2 of hearts, you turn it upside down. You win by whoever has all of their cards turned over first. So you can actually do it for the other person. I did this quite often in groups of 7 or 8 people. And I was playing for everyone at the same time. So even if there was a lot of people who didn't seem like they were understanding the game, I could still get smiles out of the person by saying, "Oh my gosh, you got another one. Look at you, great job," as I was doing it for them. So it's about creating those meaningful moments too, and having that connection with the person. I did make a snakes and ladders game myself for my son, and my husband did too, so I'll give him some credit for that. So we did it together. So it was actually a nice activity creating the game. So even if the person is sitting next to you, you can have them decide what colors you're going to put the snakes or the ladders, or they can write in the numbers along the snakes and ladders game. If you haven't used Pinterest before, Pinterest is amazing for giving you different ideas that you can do at home to make up games or to recreate what you can't buy or get online or that's not in your house. Of course, games like checkers, you've got Old Maid, Go Fish, those are all games that are quite simple, so a little bit easier to follow, and you can have some good laughs as you go through X and O's and a matching game. So just as long as you have 2 of the same pair and you have at least 10 or 12 different pairs, you can have them face down and you're just turning over. Each person takes a turn and they flip over 2 cards. If they match, that's great, they pull it out. If they don't, they turn them back over. So doing something artistic, if you want to do some painting, coloring, you want to do some crafts, that's great too. If you're really not a person that can think up what craft or painting you're going to do, you can go on YouTube, you can go on Pinterest and get some ideas of different things, and you can have someone or during the activity guide you along. So a lot of people have recorded things on YouTube showing you how, it's kind of like a paint night, how to do whatever activity you're doing, or you can get an idea of it beforehand and then you're the guide during the activity. Watching exercise videos, there's lots of exercise videos. Even if you type in exercise video dementia, you can find it that way too. We're also producing a resource right now, so a lot of the stuff we're going to be putting on a resource and giving you different ideas of where to access things so that you can plan some of these meaningful activities, which we'll email to anyone who's watching at the end of this, or you'll be able to get it on our website as well. Reading a book or an article together, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but of course you can find other people reading to you as well. There's I came across something really neat. I'm part of a mom's group, and we're all sharing different things we can do together while our kids aren't at school. And one of the things is having an astronaut read a book to you. So that's really neat for adults too. So maybe that will get you a good smile, or pulling up an article and just searching and seeing if somebody else can read that book to you, or getting it as an audiobook. And then you're sitting next to the person, you're holding their hand, you're enjoying a snack while you're doing it at the same time. Writing letters to loved ones, whether or not you send it, it's the act of writing the letter or drawing a picture for that person. So sometimes you want to give, the person might say, well, why am I drawing this picture? I don't want to draw this picture. Well, we're going to draw it for our grandson, or we're gonna send a silly package for our son, and just make him smile. So let's just draw some silly things together, or a beautiful scene. If there's one thing about this pandemic that is good, which, I mean, there's really nothing, but it can give you a good reason to engage someone in an activity. If they say, well, why am I doing this? We'll say, well, I'm kind of bored and I would really like a friend or a partner to do this with me. Would you consider doing this with me? So then it puts it on you, and the person is actually helping you through it. Planting indoor seeds, starting your garden, playing an active game. So you can, bean bags, it's another thing you can create at home. So if you have anything that you can toss into buckets, and you put different, or bowls, you put different colored bowls out, or let's say you're actually taping on a number so you can count points as you do it. With bowling, if the video works, at the end of this I have a really short Tifa Snow video, and she talks about making bowling pins with empty water bottles, and how you can reuse that. So you're filling the water bottles as you go, and then each time you do that, it's a new activity as well. And again, YouTube for playlists. So we want to make sure that if you are doing anything on YouTube, it's not something super long or hard to follow, and you kind of want to screen it beforehand to make sure that it's appropriate for what you were looking for. Another thing I actually didn't put down here, but music. Oh no, I actually skipped it. Listen to music and dance if you can. So music is, I'm sure a lot of you have heard so much about how helpful it can be. Whether you have dementia or not, we know that the music that touches us the most is stuff from our formative years, stuff that has a lot of memory attached to it. And it's been shown that people who listen to music that has meaning to them can actually temporarily improve their communication levels, or ability to have a meaningful interaction in their activity. So whether you have it on during the activity or you do a lot of music beforehand, it can help that person participate to their fullest potential. So as far as the approach goes, you want to make sure that you figure out what the person's abilities are. So we talked about that before, and whether or not they can do certain tasks within the activity or participate throughout the entire thing. You want to be monitoring the nonverbal cues of the person that you're supporting, and making sure they're not becoming agitated, and then you can stop the activity. And there's nothing wrong with starting it again, whether at that point or at the beginning again at another time. Don't be afraid to be a broken record. If you've done something several days ago and it worked really well, and you know that person's short-term memory isn't good, you can repeat the activity if it was successful as well. So again, concentrate on the process, not the results. Be flexible. Make sure that you're not holding true to the particular rules of what you expected at the end of the task. You want to be giving all sorts of encouragement throughout. And if you can tie a purpose to the activity and give them a reason why you're doing it, it's going to give more buy-in for the person to participate. Encourage self-expression. So you want to be asking the person maybe some questions as you go through to get some conversation started, because the ability to initiate tasks as someone moves through the different stages of dementia definitely reduces. So you want to even be encouraging conversation as you go through. The person isn't able to give you details, yes or no questions. Are you having fun? Isn't this great? Different things that you can also judge whether or not they're having a good time. Substitute an activity for a behavior. So if the person is let's say picking at things, or they're going around and rummaging in cupboards, you can look at activities that have to do with that. So let's say you're going to be rearranging a jewelry box, or you're going to be taking out all of the cutlery and putting it on the table and having them put it back into the appropriate shapes. Things that you feel will connect with that person and they'll enjoy doing, of course. So as far as late stage activities go, you want to be focusing on the person's senses. You want to be looking at whether or not they can feel something, and you can be encouraging conversation or just doing some commentary as you're going through to smell. So you can even get spices out of the cupboard, and something like cinnamon or nutmeg, and you can talk about different things that you've made with it or that they've made for you over certain times in their lives. What you can hear, of course, there's music, there's different sounds you can play. Something I didn't mention on YouTube that you can look up is Name That Tune. I did that with a support group that I had with people living with dementia recently. YouTube had a 70s Name That Tune playlist, and it was great. And there was a 60s one and a 50s one, so depending on the era that the person grew up with, it's already pre-done for you, so it really doesn't take a lot of effort except for pressing play. What you see, so looking at different colors, looking at the window and talking about what that looks like together. What you taste, so of course you can make mealtime into a more meaningful activity if you have them talk about the tastes as they go through. Pet therapy is another one, so having someone pet the animal or help care for the animal, so whether they're brushing them or you're looking through their fur to make sure there's no mats there, even if you know there isn't, it can be something that you're having them search and feel accomplished about. Looking at birds outside of the window, setting up a bird feeder there. You can do a lot with peanut butter. Do it at home. If you have different nuts and different seeds too, you can just put peanut butter on anything, and then you can put a string on it, and then put the seeds or the nuts around it and stick to it and see what the birds do outside of your window. And then doll therapy, that's another thing I wanted to talk about. So for people who really are at near the late stages, maybe middle stages of dementia, if they really are connected to stuffed animals or dolls, you want to leave it in their surroundings, have them discover it themselves, or maybe point it out to them, because of course we don't want to insult someone if they still understand it is a doll, and they would say to you, what is this for? You can always just say, oh, I just remember my daughter playing with this at one point and I just got it out to look at it, if you're looking for a reason why, if the person seems offended by why you would hand them a doll too. But it can really bring a lot of meaning to someone's life if they do enjoy that kind of care and support, because it's giving them that compassion feeling that we can all carry on quite long, and it really connects with how the person feels. And so if you're looking for more instructions on that, one of the resources I'm going to send at the end of the webinar and we'll have online is a connection to a website that explains more about how to be successful in doll therapy. Oops, sorry. I got ahead of myself there. So we've, of course, now because I'm at home, my video won't play. So, oh, maybe it will. Let me see. Yay, here it is. It might take a few seconds.
You need to give me things that have purpose and immediate feedback. Building things. It doesn't have to be a permanent thing. It can be a temporary thing. Putting glue with, screwing it on, bowling pins. Just make bowling pins. Putting beans in them, corn in them, rice in them. shakers for another group. They're making this, you know what? Don't put glue on the tongue. Empty back out. They can do it another week. Recycle, recycle, recycle. You need things that can be redone, 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 because you don't want to have to spend your resources on supplies. You want to spend your funds on people and doing things you can't do over and over. Caring for things. I keep forgetting I have making things. Caring for things. Caring for things is huge. Many people like to nurture by caring for things. What are things we can care for? Plants, pets, animals, people, places, supplies, materials. Helping to set up, helping to clean up might very well be my productive activity. I bring the bingo cards out. I set them out on the tables. I gather them up at the end. I am actually being productive. If you remember to say what? Thank you for your help. You are the most amazing person. I really appreciate it. Can I have a hug? I mean, you're just amazing. Thank you so much. I'm not sure I would have gotten everything done if you had not come down here and helped me. Yes, I know you can move the tables. Quit. Let them do it.
So if anyone hasn't watched any videos by Teepa Snow before, her name is Teepa Snow, T-E-E-P-A, Snow, as in the snow that falls, that bad bird we really don't want any more of. So you can look her up on YouTube as well. And she's got lots of live events as well. Several of our coaches are trained in Teepa Snow positive approach. So you can look to our website and see if there's any workshops coming up if you'd like to join in on that as well. So questions. I'm tired. I've been up since 4 a.m. with my son. So now is a good time to ask any questions or specific challenges that you might be having with getting someone to begin a meaningful activity, or it hasn't gone well. My colleague Herman is going to be monitoring the chat right now and seeing if we can support you.
Yeah, so I have a question here from Pitchin. He says that, can you please type in the email address you mentioned at the beginning? Connectivity is unstable, so I missed part of it. Thank you.
The email address to connect with us is...
Yeah, I think it's yeah. Can you type the email address you mentioned? Yeah, at the beginning.
Okay. Yeah, so that's actually in the next slide. So info@dsorc.org. info@dsorg and Renfrew County is what that stands for. So you're welcome, if you haven't already connected with us or you would like to reconnect with us, to send an email to that, and a dementia care coach will reply to you. Or you can call our main line, 613-523-4004, and of course, in Renfrew County, 888-411-2067. So we are still available for support during this time. We are all working from home remotely right now, but we're still on the phone supporting people, and we're doing a lot more support online, including our support groups and education sessions. Is there any other questions from you?
I see we have 24 participants.
Okay.
Just waiting. If anyone has a question, you can raise your hand. You can wave. Let's wait a little bit here.
So if you don't know how to do that, if you hover over the bottom of your screen, there should be a little button you can click to say chat, or if there's a little hand that you can wave.
Okay, there's a comment here from Karen. So I just joined in, snooping in from Alzheimer's Society of Hamilton. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, we're here to support everyone, even if you're not in our catchment area or you're another organization. We're all looking to support the same purpose and helping people live well with dementia as much as possible. So it's don't ever hesitate to reach out. I've connected with a lot of other societies too to get some tips and feedback as well.
Yeah, so JC says, thank you, webinars are great.
Yeah, they are. As long as your internet works. I was a little worried about that. I live in the country, so, but it seems that it all went as well as it could have.
All right, seems that we don't have more questions.
Okay.